With Assassin's Creed Valhalla getting closer and closer, I thought I'd talk about a few predictions I have for the game. And keep in mind, these are just predictions made in August 2020, so in 3 or 4 months when this has aged horribly, you know, keep that in mind. Anyway, onto the list. So, something I've been thinking about for a while that I haven't seen anyone touch on is Valhalla's DLC. We know it exists as a season pass has been confirmed as a part of several editions of the game. Also in various editions were cosmetic things like different sails for your ship, ways to customise your settlement, all that kind of stuff. We already knew those would be in the game, that's not the DLC I'm talking about. I'm more interested in the expansions of the game, which the season pass confirms if the track record of Ubisoft in the past didn't already. Both Origins and Odyssey had 2 expansions, and since this is following that same formula, I'm sure it'll be the same thing. And I reckon it will be just like Origins, where we get an expansion to the story of the main game set in 2 new regions. I think Scotland, or Alba as it was, is the safest bet for an expansion. There was a lot of Viking activity in Northumbria, and that extends up to about where modern day Edinburgh is. Obviously, AC can call for this story to go anywhere, but there's so many things that could be done with Scotland, and that's the way I'm leaning right now. Wales, Ireland, and maybe parts of Scandinavia as well, if the story really demanded it, but I feel the others are more likely. If we did see Ireland, then I'm sure it would be handled like going to the Sinai or Thebes, where there'd be a separate menu, or maybe we could even sail there. In the case of Wales and Scotland, you wouldn't even need to really do that. But yeah, expansions are bound to happen, and I'm really excited for whatever they do go with, because I think all of their options here are really interesting. I just hope they don't do a DLC set in Valhalla, or something silly to do with like fighting Norse gods, or something like that. That's not why I play AC, and I think this is our chance, our one chance, to see some of these countries in mainline entries. If I had to go with 2, I would love for them to go to Ireland and Scotland, but I personally say Scotland is my most likely location I think they'll go with. But either way, we'll get more information about DLC at maybe a Ubisoft Forward event close to the game's release. We know there's one in September, but I think a November one, like a final one before Valhalla, is more likely. You won't want to build up hype for that too early, and you wouldn't want to overshadow other features in the game. Also, as a side note, we could see an AC1 remaster bundled with the season pass, like 3 with Odyssey, but I think Ubisoft might wait until they have a year off mainline entries, as they did with their other remasters, and I think next year we will get a fully next-gen game, so maybe that'll happen in 2022, but that is really off topic. Whatever Ubisoft Montreal do with the DLC, or whoever makes the DLC, there's so many options they have, and I'm really interested in seeing what they'll do. Stonehenge is an ESU site. It just is. That's the first thing I thought about when seeing it briefly in the gameplay trailer. Stonehenge, for those of you who don't know, is an arrangement of stones that I'll show on screen for you now, and nobody knows who built it, or when they built it, or why, and there's a bunch of theories about it. It's been shown and talked about a fair bit so far, or more than you'd expect for just a normal landmark. It was confirmed to be in the game back in May, then we saw it in the gameplay trailer, and then again in the gameplay overview, where after using Odin's sight, you can see these weird markings on Stonehenge that are probably of ESU origin. Well, they definitely are of ESU origin. And to be fair, it is a recognisable English landmark that you would want to throw in a trailer for a game set in England, but I feel like the fact it's so mystical is too good for Derby to let up, and the fact we keep seeing it makes me certain it's an ESU site. I've checked the ESU maps we've seen in AC1, 2, Rogue and Origins, and in every single one of them you can see an ESU site in southern England, about where Stonehenge would be. I'm not saying that Patrice had exact locations in mind when making the original map, but knowing his meticulousness, that is possible. Not that it would matter anyway, because AC isn't above retcons, especially ones that are so tiny. As well, bonus points if they make Norse gods into members of the first Civ. Derby's already told us the game won't indulge in fantasy as much as Odyssey did, but it is an important part of their culture, and they've made gods into ESU before in comics, like Horus, Osiris and Eset. Stonehenge might be a part of the main story, but I think we could see a temple under there, like how we saw ESU projections in some of Origin's tombs. Either way, with Stonehenge being as mystical as it is, there's no way it's going to be nothing, and it should be a nice extension to the AC lore. Now, my third prediction is a more tame one that I think a lot of people would also guess, although a lot of people did agree about Stonehenge. I'm fairly sure this will be the last time we see Layla, or at least the end of her story with us playing as her. We know the modern day is finally being given the spotlight again in Valhalla, and Derby's also said this is going to be a good capper for everything that's came before it. On top of this, you have the fact the next game is going to be exclusively on the next generation, where Ubisoft would probably make another game that's sort of an entry point for the series, in the same way that Unity was. Despite the fact we've not seen any of the Monday for ourselves and probably won't until the game releases, we do know a little bit. People who have played demos of the games say Layla looks much older now, which I would say is to do with the character model changing, like how Desmond was Alex Turner for a bit and Ottoberg regenerated into another man on several occasions, but I'm sure they'll use the same character model given the fact Valhalla is a part of this like RPG trilogy, so I guess that's intentional. It'd be nice if they'd gone a few years into the future so the Monday doesn't keep jumping to present day and skipping over crucial plot points, although I'm not too sure they'll have done that. Considering the ends of Fates of Atlantis, Layla's far more villainous and like flings a mate to death, I think Darby's setting up some sort of arc, as he's tweeted that we'll like it by the end of the game, which I'm skeptical of, but I'd love to like Layla, and I think if anyone can do it, Darby can. And when someone replied, being understandably skeptical of that, he said, "The proper approach, I think, is not to ask yourself, did I like every choice I made, but rather, did they attempt something interesting? We can't please everyone all of the time, but we can show everyone that we put in the work and effort." And that's great. Darby's not trying to be a crowd pleaser and is just doing what he wants with the story, and it's going to be great for that. And whatever they do, I'm fairly sure it is going to be the end of Layla's story, and the next game is going to be something totally different. So, a prediction I've had for a while is that Valhalla is going to link the Levantine assassins of AC1 to the hidden ones of Origins, and this is something I've been talking about well before the game's announcement. The fact the game is set between Origins and AC1 leaves a huge opportunity there to connect the two brotherhoods, and maybe show setup for the Levantines as we know them in AC1. Since those theories months ago, there's been more that aligns with that, like seeing an assassin very clearly wearing a Levantine robe in one of the trailers, as well as the fact Darby mentioned how it'd be a good capper to everything before it, and this game could potentially bring things full circle at the end of this generation. It'd be really fitting, actually. Montreal 3 created the concept of the hidden ones, which Quebec abandoned, but now they're back. I'm sure they're going to want to flesh out their story as much as they can and cement their place in the AC lore. But yeah, anyway, those are just a few predictions I have, and if you want to add any of your own, maybe drop a comment. If you enjoyed, maybe leave a like, and if you didn't, maybe let me know why. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time.